Welcome to another edition of the USF Football Radio Show. The Bulls are 1-1. They're heading south this week to play Florida Atlantic. And we'll look back at the trip to Notre Dame, the visit to South Bend that occurred last Saturday. Coach, if you're in this game long enough, you know there's ups and downs, and it was a challenge that the Bulls readily accepted, going on the road to play a top 10 team in Notre Dame, and they were as good as everybody said they were. And for the Bulls, an opportunity certainly to learn.
Yeah, obviously a very disappointing outcome. And, we knew we were going to play a talented team. I mean, you could tell watching the video getting ready for that week that, this was probably Coach Kelly's best Notre Dame team that he's had since he's been there. And, they played very well, and we didn't. We made some mistakes that it didn't really matter who we were playing. They would cost you. And so, the big lesson for our guys is hey, we got to learn from it. We got to play better. We got to accept it. We got to take ownership. No excuses. And, if our guys will respond the right way, then, we'll be better for that experience. If we don't respond the right way, then we'll have, some more experiences like that in the future. And so that's the big challenge this week is, making sure our guys, are able to learn from the mistakes, coaches, everybody take ownership, and, let's move forward.
Coach, did Notre Dame actually show you guys what they showed on film? I watched a little bit of film. You did see a lot of run. You did see a lot of play action. But was there anything that showed up differently on game day that you guys didn't see on film?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it was a big surprise. I mean, obviously you could look at the lineups. They had a pretty strong size advantage with their offensive line and tight end versus our defensive line. So, they went in a little bit more heavier sets than they did the week before against Duke. We expected that coming in. And unfortunately, we just kind of got swallowed up. And, we got to learn as defensive players to get off those blocks. When those guys get on you, we got to fight to get off the blocks. And ultimately, that's what allowed for a lot of their success on the offensive side of the ball.
And offensively, Notre Dame really came out throwing in the first few plays. It was Ian Book to the air quite a bit early on. That seemed to be their early game plan.
Yeah, they got in some tight sets and threw it early, and I think that was to maybe try to back us up just a little bit because they knew we probably were anticipating them running the ball a good bit. And, they threw it early and then really kind of settled in, and ran the ball. And, it's a tough experience to go through, but, we needed that. We needed to see, I'd be very surprised if we play anybody else that big up front. And so that's a huge challenge. And, we've got to learn from that and get better when we get into, everybody else is going to watch the tape as well. And we're going to have other people that are going to line up and try to run it right at us, and we got to be better the next time we get in that situation.
Coach, you talk about the mixed matches up front between their offensive line and your defensive line. What happened on special teams? It seemed like Snyder had a rough day on special teams, just actually getting the ball placed properly and getting the ball coming off his foot properly. Any dialogue towards that?
Yeah, the biggest disappointment really started with the snap. Unfortunately, we were inconsistent. Every snap was high, and then we had two that went over his head that really, created a tough situation. And we got to be better. I mean, it doesn't matter who you play. You got to do the easy things right. It's the common things that you've got to do in every game. And that was unfortunate. We got in a situation where our backup long snapper was Antonio Greer going into the game. We've already lost one to an ACL, Andrew Beardall, earlier this year. And then Bryce Bernard, who's normally our backup long snapper, had to stay behind due to some COVID-related issues. So we went into the game with Antonio Greer being our backup long snapper. He got hurt in the game, and so I put Ian Deneen back out there one more time just because we really didn't have anybody else. And then when he snapped it over his head, I had seen enough. I wasn't going to put him back in that situation again. So we ended up just punting with our quarterback for the remainder of the game.
How do you assess the quarterback situation at this stage? We saw, again, a couple of different players. You got Catravis in there as well briefly. What's your read on that position now?
Yeah, it's still wide open. I think those guys have done some good things, but overall, we just have not been consistent enough at the quarterback or wide receiver position. That's probably the most frustrating thing for me through 2 games is I really believe what I see in practice that we have the ability to be explosive through the air. We've got a room full of very athletic wide receivers that have some good ability and talents. And our quarterbacks at times have shown that. We just have not played up to the standard that we need to play at that quarterback position. And, there's several guys in there. Hopefully we'll get Cade Fortin back soon and give him an opportunity. And then, Catravis Marsh is also a freshman that, he's done a really good job as he's learned what he's doing in practice. He's got a very live arm. And so I think those two will definitely, get some opportunities moving forward. And hopefully, both Jordan and Noah continue to work, continue to improve. And if we can play better at that position, I think it's really going to have a strong impact for us moving forward.
Coach, how does a guy win the job at quarterback? I like it. I know you just spoke on it briefly, but I'd like for you to dive into it just a little more because you talk about the position at quarterback. It seems like a guy needs time to actually get in rhythm and, get in sync with the rest of the offense. But with so many guys coming in and out, what exactly are you looking to see from a guy for him to walk away and call the position here for at least a few games or so?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is consistency throwing the ball. I think all the guys that have gone in there have done a good job of leading the offense, communicating. We haven't had a ton. We had one delay a game that should not have happened last week. But outside of that, those guys have done a good job of managing the game, if you will. They've done a good job in some of the running game things, but we just have not thrown the ball consistently the way that we need to. So to me, that's the number one thing that I'm looking for is someone that can stand back there and consistently deliver the ball. And as soon as we can find that, our plan and goal from the very beginning has been to use these first 3 games to get as much film on the quarterbacks, give them opportunities, with the goal going into Cincinnati here in another week of really saying, hey, this is our quarterback, at least for that game, and not getting a situation where we're going 2 series and out 2 series. But, the reason we've had to do that now is because we're still evaluating guys, and you only get so many reps. I think we only had 60 plays on offense this past week. So right now, that's kind of where we are. But the goal and hope is that when we get ready for conference play here in another week, that we can kind of settle in and let that person go with the offense.
Maybe the best offensive weapon Saturday, Johnny Ford. He had a couple of those Johnny Ford moments where we thought, oh, here he goes, and then unfortunately he lost his footing on a couple of them. But clearly a guy that is just so explosive. Is there a thought that he needs more touches now in games?
Yeah, Johnny's done a really good job. He's a guy whenever I got here that he was kind of in the doghouse. He was a talented guy, but really had not been accountable and off the field and really was on his way out of here. And me being a new coach coming in probably gave him a chance for a restart, if you will. And we had several meetings at the very beginning that, hey, this is the way that it's going to be done or you're not going to be here. And he's chosen to do the things that he needed to do accountability-wise to be here. And now it's refreshing to see him make that decision off the field and then to be able to see him get opportunities and have success on the field. But there's no doubt he's established himself, as one of our top playmakers, if not the top playmaker so far through 2 games. And you can bet we'll definitely be finding ways to get him the ball here moving forward.
Coach, your unavailable list, it dwindled significantly. Still has some key guys out. Demetrius Harris on the front line on offense. Also, Dwayne Boyles was out this past game. I know those 2 guys being out definitely played some role in the inconsistencies in play this past weekend. But what factors played into the unavailable list just dwindling down?
Yes, some of the guys we were able to get back. I think Donovan Jennings, getting him back at left tackle was really good, and I would say that's one bright spot is I felt like the guys up front handled themselves pretty well. They had a big challenge versus that defensive line, and there's a lot of good pictures in there, pass protection-wise, guys trading off, even some one-on-one blocks, and we just didn't deliver the ball to be able to make it, a great play. And so that's why we got to be more consistent. But yeah, we were excited to get Donovan back, and hopefully we'll get a few more of these guys back here, the next week. But unfortunately, just because of the type of year it is with COVID and all the things that are going on, it's probably a reasonable expectation that you're going to have, 3 to 4 starters out every week as you go out there. So, for us, we just have to kind of have the mindset that, hey, next man up. I think, even though the scoreboard did not show it on Saturdays, man, the guys did not stop playing. We were out there defensively. We had 11 on the field, and we probably had 3 or 4 other guys on the sideline that could go in. So we were, real thin, but the guys kept playing, and that was something that I was looking for. And like I said, it didn't show up on the scoreboard, but it did show up on the film and what I could see from the sideline. So, hey, this is a different year. I mean, we're practicing right now with about 78 guys. Normally, you would have 115 out there practicing. Wow. And so we have to practice a little bit different. We have to take more breaks. And, at the end of the day, hey, there's no excuses. We got to go out and play well. But it definitely is a different year.
Coach, collectively, what does the wide receiver group need to do to elevate their play?
Yeah, I think it's the details. Like I said earlier, I've talked about it. We've got really good athleticism in that room, really good potential. Knock on wood, the guys in practice and games have caught the ball well. But, it's all about, the passing game is about spacing and timing. And so if you're supposed to go 10 yards on your slant and you go 6, then there's a guy in the window, the ball gets tipped, and it's incomplete. And a lot of people are yelling at the quarterback, but really the wide receiver, ran the short route. And so it's being sure that our splits are exactly right. If we say 2.5 yards off the hash was your alignment, it's not 3, it's not 4, it's 2.5 yards. And so I think the details have been lacking a little bit there. And those guys they understand what the expectations are. We've played a lot of guys. We're going to kind of hone in on maybe 5 or 6 guys here moving forward now that we've had 2 games. And hopefully that'll help us with our consistency and the guys being where they need to be.
Coach, I saw some real bright spots from some of your defensive backs. A guy who's not listed as a starter, Micah Point, he's a guy who in both game 1 and 2, you're seeing him make some really strong tackles. Obviously, he had the interception at the end of the game in game 1. But talk about the growth and development and also the production of that defensive back unit these past 2 games.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mekhi, I'm really proud of him. He played well in the first game, and he made some nice plays this past Saturday and got the player of the game on defense for a couple of the tackles that he made coming off the bench. But that's a position that's continuing to improve. Probably the biggest negative from that group this past week was just the overall tackling. And I think I just saw too many guys just kind of diving at legs and not wrapping up. And so that was our big message to those guys from this past game is, hey, you got to go in there and you got to wrap up. You can't just go in there and dive and throw a shoulder at somebody's legs. We got to wrap them up. We can't give them the second, third chance that we saw Saturday. But, overall that DB room has some experience, has a lot of pride. They work hard in practice. It's important to them. And, I still believe they're going to be, one of the strengths of our defense here moving forward.
We'll take a timeout. Bulls defensive line coach Daquan Bowers with us later in the hour on the USF Football Radio Network presented by Marathon. Welcome back to the USF Football Radio Show. Thad Mangum will be with us later in the hour from the Bulls defensive line. Week 3 coming up. Coach, we broadcasters love to have games with storylines, and you just keep serving them up for us. Florida Atlantic, 3 of the 5 head coaches in Bulls football history will be on the sidelines that day. But this is an intriguing opponent. They haven't played yet. They've had their games canceled early season. They have a new head coach. They have a lot of new personnel. Obviously, you have some insight into their returning players from Coach Spencer and Coach Weiss, but How do we evaluate this opponent?
Yeah, it was really interesting last night. We're watching their video, and I'm sitting here going, okay, I'm watching FAU's video from last year, and their coordinators that were running those offense and defense, they're in our building right now. So that was kind of a first right there. But, I think number one, you watch some of the video from last year to see some of the returning guys to kind of gauge the personnel. And then you have to look at the coaches that are, Coach Levitt, his last year as a defensive coordinator was at Oregon, so we're watching a lot of that defensive video there, and obviously watching some of the stuff that Coach Taggart's done in the past with the offense, and obviously there's a lot of storylines. We have maybe 5 coaches total, counting some of our GAs and analysts. They were all at Florida Atlantic last year, and obviously I have a lot of respect for Coach Levitt and Coach Taggart, and what they did here during their time here, and kind of building the foundation that we get an opportunity to coach and build on top of. So I think there's a lot of intriguing storylines for sure. The message for our guys, coming off our last game is really the same message we have every week, that, hey, this is about us. It's not about FAU. It's not about any of the storylines that may be intriguing, right, to the outside. But this is really about us improving and us fixing some of the issues, that we had last week, and continuing to take that next step moving forward on this journey.
Coach, of the 4 coaches that were here at USF prior to your arrival, I think everybody from a fan base perspective would agree that 2 of them had success here, and that's Levitt and Taggart. As you take on this job and you look at some of the success they had, not necessarily on the field, but from a universal standpoint, with the university, with the community, with recruiting, what lessons can you take away from the success that they had, and just say, hey, this is something that I can focus on as a coach, as I'm leading this community, as I'm going out and trying to keep USF attractive to the local players?
Yeah, absolutely. And I wasn't here, but I've tried to do my research and talk. We do have several staff members that have been here all the way through, and so I've tried to ask them, maybe whenever I first got the job in January and February, and try to get the history of our program and kind of the ups and the downs and the things that did go well and the things that didn't. And I would agree with exactly what you said. I mean, everybody has a lot of respect for Coach Levitt really starting the program. And, to me, for both Coach Levitt and Coach Taggart, it starts within your own locker room. And I think what both of them did during their time here is they had their own players believing in what they were doing. And I think once you have your locker room believing, and then you kind of build off of that as you go to your boosters and you go to people in the community. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've taken away is, hey, it starts right here. It starts in your own locker room. It starts with a very defined culture that your young men understand the standards and they believe in. And then, from that, hey, it's about getting out in the community and really trying to create some energy and excitement within the program. And, my goal is to build the program back. It's going to be a process, but build it back to a place where, both Coach Leverett and Coach Taggart had it, where they were winning a lot of games and having exciting seasons and filling up Raymond James Stadium. So I definitely have a respect for what both of them did during their time here. And, I look forward to being able to visit with them briefly during pregame.
And I guess that's the message for the fan base, is it not, that this is a work in progress? It's going to take some time. That's just the reality of it, but it's heading in the right direction. We're just driving down the road right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look back, I think we've won 5 of our last 20 games. All right, so let's figure out where we are, and let's chart where we're going, right? And it didn't get here overnight. It's not going to change overnight. I mean, if we'd have gone out and played very well and had a chance to upset Notre Dame, everything would not have been fixed. And I told our players that before the game in the week, like, hey, this is just one game. This is not, the make it or break it moment. Like, we're on a journey, right? And there's going to be ups and downs throughout this journey. But our goal is to get back to a position where we are a consistent winner, where every single week we go out there, we have the opportunity to win the game, and that there is a standard. When you turn on the TV or you come to Raymond James and you watch the University of South Florida play football, you know what you're going to get. And I think that's what takes time. It's going to take getting the current players to believe and buy in, and it's going to take recruiting to try to address, some issues you may have at certain positions. But hey, we're a long way away from that. But I am very optimistic of the future of this program because of the people that we have in the locker room and the coaches that we have and the way these guys have responded. And, I told our players this morning, I said, this is not the first adversity that our team has faced this year. Our team's faced a lot of adversity over the last 6 months, right, with all this stuff going on. This just happens to be the first adversity that we face since the season has started. And I told our players, if they respond as well now as they did the last 6 months before the season started when they faced adversity, then we're going to have a season at the end of the year that we're all going to be proud of. And so that's really the challenge is to embrace it, let's learn from it, and then let's move on and get better.
Coach, we talked a lot about what happened last game. We talked about some of the things you've told your players. But what's the energy that your team has right now, especially after last game and going into this game? I know it's very early in the week, but what's the energy like? Do you like it? Is there some things you'd like to see change before Wednesday, Thursday?
Yeah, what's really interesting is, and I didn't say this, I got asked this at the press conference, but I didn't go into detail last week because it was still in the middle of the week. But, I was disappointed in our Monday last week. Coming off the first win and all that, I really thought that Monday our guys would be fired up, excited. And last Monday was probably our worst practice of the year since I've been here. Now, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday picked up and was solid. But I told our players that today. I was like, listen, how we respond today is going to say a lot about this week and about this weekend, right? And I want to see our best practice. And we got done a little while ago. It probably was our best practice of the year. I mean, the guys, there was nobody moping around. There was good energy. And I told those guys, I'm very honest with the team. I said, hey, I like what I saw today. And, now we got to respond. And, one other point I want to make that I made with the team today is, I think last year one of our teams in our own conference, Cincinnati, went and played at Ohio State and got beat 42-0 at Ohio State. It was week 2 of the season, very similar to this. And then that Cincinnati team, decided, to learn from it and respond the right way. Ended up winning 9 of the next 10 games and played in the conference championship game. So, I told our players, hey, this game versus Notre Dame at the end of the year, when everything's done, our season's over, our season's not going to be determined or, graded on how we played Notre Dame week 2. It's really going to be looked at of how we responded the next 9 weeks. And so that's really the mindset that I want our guys to have is, hey, yes, we got some work to do. We need to improve. But, man, we have every goal that we set before the season is still out there in front of us. And, that's the mindset that we're going to take, and I was able to see that today with our guys.
You're in the midst of 3 in a row on the road, and that wasn't the original plan. This is a byproduct of the schedule juggling that became necessary with the non-conference. But that's a challenge too. Different type of trip this time, closer to home. But what will you be looking for on the way to Boca Raton the night before the game, going to the stadium, and all of that time frame? What are you looking for that will make you feel this team is ready and taking it seriously and ready to play?
And, I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, but I was very pleased with our mindset going into this last game. And, I was disappointed with the way that we played because, man, our guys were locked in. They really were. And then we went out there and got punched in the mouth, and then we just did not respond. But, I've seen the first 2 weeks the way we've traveled, and it as a coach. You can tell when your guys are locked in and focused and when they're not. And so far, I mean, I've been really pleased with the way that we travel. And that's important to me as how we travel. I want to make sure that everybody's doing the things we ask them to do, locked in, and understand, hey, this is a business trip. And so my expectation for these guys this week on the bus ride is to really be who they've been the first 2 weeks. And then ultimately, when we kick it off, we got to play better than we played last week. That's really the end of the story.
Coach, last thought from me. What are you expecting from your assistant coaches during this time? And the reason why I asked this question, I think us on the inside of the football world we know what that looks like, right? But I want the fans to know the role of your assistant coaches because you selected these guys specifically for a reason. So how do they how do they help you carry this team where it needs to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody knew. I mean, I had a lot of in-depth conversations with each of our coaches as I was recruiting them down here to Tampa. I mean, I think everybody knew that we have a challenge. I mean, it's going to take some time. There's going to be some ups and downs. But, as a coach, if you're a true competitor, like in a strange way, you look forward to this. Like, this is where you build your team. This is where you make a difference. I think with adversity is where you get change and growth. And we need, as a program and as a team, we need a lot of change and we need a lot of growth. So, like, this is that time. So, that was what my message for our coaches was on Sunday. It's like, hey, these players need you now more than ever, right? Number one, they need you to stay positive and continue to believe. And number two, they need your help on correcting the mistakes that we had. But, the other message is we're doing a lot of really good things. And I hate it that it did not show up on the scoreboard Saturday. But I've seen a lot of positive changes just in, these first couple months. And, I believe once we start playing better out there, on the field, that I think those positive changes that we've seen will really start showing themselves in this program moving forward.
Coach, thank you. We'll see you in Boca.
All right. Thank you.
Head coach of the Bulls, Jeff Scott. Stay with us. Much more to come. We'll continue after this on the USF Football Radio Network, presented by Marathon. Welcome back. The Bulls in Florida Atlantic in Boca Raton. This is going to be a 6 o'clock start. Television is the CBS Sports Network. Our radio coverage begins at 4:30 on USF Bulls Unlimited and moves over to the radio side at 5 o'clock on WHNZ AM 1250 in Tampa Bay. Of course, it'll continue on Unlimited as well. Saturday night from Boca. Defensive line coach Daquan Bowers joins us. Coach, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you all for having me on.
Quite an experience going up to Notre Dame, and I know the result was not what we wanted, but, as we talked about with Coach Scott, everything is a chance to learn. And, I think that's going to be a positive in the long term, was learning lessons from that game on Saturday.
No doubt. There are a ton of mistakes that we made that we can learn from. Wasn't the result that we wanted, and the outcome that we wanted, but, I was definitely proud of how our guys fought through and, they didn't show any quit. And that's what it's ultimately about. You can't coach heart. We can get the X's and O's corrected, but you can't coach that toughness and that heart.
Coach, and I'm calling you Coach now, but, prior to us sitting down and prior to you taking this job, I didn't know you as Coach Bowers. I knew you as Daquan Bowers,
yes,
the
sir.
Daquan Bowers. And I was actually here at USF while you were at Clemson, and I just watched you as a player, and then I saw you had an injury, and then you bounced back from that, and then you get to come play for the home team. How much of that experience are you able to take away and actually give back to your players? Because there are a lot of coaches that coach this game that didn't play it, and they played the game, but maybe not at a high level as you did, and then you went
Right.
through the public scrutiny of being a top-ranked player, not only on the high school level, but the college level, and then you get to play in the NFL. So how much value do you think that gave you to actually give back to your guys?
I tell my guys all the time, utilize my experiences. I've lived it. I've lived the good, the bad, and the ugly. So if I can tell you something and I've experienced it and lived through it, I want to try to help you navigate through whatever that problem is, And I tell my guys whatever it is outside of football, because I've dealt with the outside issues, like you said, the injuries and the public scrutiny and all of that type thing. I've lived it and dealt with it. So I've experienced, and I try to lend my hand to those guys all the time and tell them, hey, man, I'm here. Whatever you need to talk about, I'm here, because I've lived it. And it would be very selfish of me to go through the things that I've been through and the lessons that I've learned experiencing those things and not be able to give that back to those guys so they don't learn from my mistake.
Awesome.
Tell us about the transition from player to coach. You're not far removed from your playing days, both in the NFL and the CFL, and you're coming up the ladder in the coaching world very quickly. What has that transition been like?
It's funny you say that. I tell my guys all the time, hey, I'm only a few steps away. If y'all try me, I might have to show y'all a little something. But it's been a fun experience. not being too far removed from the game. I've still got that kind of that edge of a player, wanting to always, grind and be better. And I try to bring that to my group, always trying to be ahead of the game. The transition was fun for me, because I got to retire on my own merit, and I got to go off and get some pretty good experience for where I was at prior to here at my alma mater in Clemson. So being able to learn from Coach Winnie and that staff and Coach Scott, that was a blessing. And being able to take what I've learned and gathered from there and bring it down here try to get this culture to where they are, it's a blessing. And like Coach Scott said, it's been a fun ride so far over the past 9 months, and you can kind of see the shift in those guys, from day one to now, and that's part of the process, and I'm just blessed to be here. It's been a fun transition. Sometimes I miss playing. Saturday was one of those first times, since I've been out of playing that I kind of missed it, being that competitive edge. But, it's fun. I love my group of guys. They keep me on my toes. They keep me energetic, and, it's fun to be around them daily.
Coach, you play for the Bucks, so you know this city really well, right?
I do.
Because of that perspective, you're able to talk to your players about life after football in a different fashion because you know what opportunities exist. Can you share a little bit on how those conversations go? I know we just had a big game with Notre Dame. We're going into a huge game week this week, but just talking a little bit of ball off the field as well.
I just try to tell those guys to maximize every day and the opportunities that they get. Here I am. I'm 30 years old. I played 6 years professionally, and I have the rest of my life to live, outside of the game of football. I'm blessed to be able to be around it in the coaching sense, but, they need to understand that, football can't be their full and only foundation to their life. Coach likes to talk about those 4 wheels all the time, and, football can only be one of those wheels. There's life after football. So in the process of football, I try to get them to understand, hey, take advantage of every opportunity because the next one isn't promised to you. And when that time does come that you can't lace those cleats up, know that football was only a minute part of your life, and that's not your foundation. And there's other things that you can excel at, even being a part of the game as a coach or whatever. Like me, I love the game so much that I know that I wanted to be a coach and give what I've learned throughout my process and career back to these young guys. And that's what I try to do for them daily.
So this summer we did a series of interviews. We were doing them exclusively on Zoom at that point because we couldn't get back together, and had you scheduled. So I'm doing my due diligence, Googling Daquan Bowers, and I'm looking for stats and played here, played there, and what we could talk about on the field. And I kept getting all these hits about music.
Yes, sir.
And all right, well, I'm curious now, so I clicked one, and I would encourage people to do exactly the same. Dynamic.
Thank you.
Tell us about your
Thank you.
music background.
Well, I was brought up in the church as a young kid. My father was a musician his whole life. He played in a group called Tommy Ellison and the Five Singing Stars for 33 years up until his death. It's just as long as he was married. That's how long he'd been traveling with this group, and I got to travel the world with him. It was a Christian group. We got to travel the world and be in churches, be out of the country in Italy and things like that. So as a kid, I got to see that, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to be a part of that, So I picked up the guitar at 4 years old, and it never left my hand since. And it's funny because I played in the house probably 10 or 11 years before my dad would even let me go in public and play. So nobody knew that I could really play. They knew that I could play, but they had never seen me play. So when I finally got the chance to play in public, nobody could tell the difference between my father's playing and my playing. That's how advanced I was at that early age. It was just one of those things I always wanted to do. My dad was my hero. So got the chance when I turned 17, to travel the world and tour with this group professionally. By this time, it had changed into the legendary singing stars. Tommy Ellison had passed on, and my dad, who was originally the guitarist, had become the lead singer. So when he became the lead, it kind of opened up a spot for me to kind of slide in and tour outside of the time that I was doing football. And he made it extremely clear that football came first, school came first, guitar came last. So that's how it always went. And I can always remember, if we had a 12 o'clock game, 4:30, 5 o'clock, I'm getting in my car and I'm going to if it's close enough for me to make the show, I'm going to play guitar that night. And then I'm coming back to school to get ready for, class and stuff on Monday morning. But, it was a great experience. I appreciate the compliment. It's something that I take pride in. That's part of my father's legacy. It's part of that group. And I still take care of those guys to this day. When I'm not dealing with football, I still tour with them. We're all around the country still to this day, outside of COVID, of course.
That's awesome, man. And the reason why that's so awesome, because people call us football players, failing to realize the spectrum, failing to realize the range we have as men. So,
Yes.
I'll echo what Jim said. I highly encourage anybody to just go check this man out. I hadn't had a chance to hear it, but I knew about this from the time. I was a big fan of yours. Clemson, and I don't know if you knew this, but Jeff Scott recruited me when he was at Clemson, actually sat in my living room. It was a top opportunity. It was a top school for me, and so I always paid attention to you. Guys like Aaron Kelly. I played against Kyle Parker while he was at Clemson, played against Xavier Brewer, grew up with Jamie Harper, all of those guys. So I just want to commend you on that. But one of the things I want to ask you is, you know what it's like to be great not only in the game of football, but as a guitarist. What makes a great defensive lineman on the college football level, in your opinion?
In my opinion, it's multiple things. Number one is the love for the game. As a defensive lineman, you can't not love football because you have a tough job to do every play. My biggest thing as a defensive line coach, I like my guys to be, mentally tough, and I like them to be physically tough. I like them to be able to bend, move, and change the direction. But that mental part is as big as that physical part, because you have to fight through injury, because there's not going to be a time as a defensive lineman that you're not banged up with ankles and knees and elbows and shoulders, because you're constantly hitting somebody every play. So, the biggest thing for a defensive lineman is coming with that mindset of being energetic and coming with the positive attitude of grinding every day, because there's going to be hard days. There's going to be days you don't feel like doing it. But in order for your football team to be good, your defensive line has to be good, because they're going to be the driving force of that defense and that football team. Because without stopping the run, without getting to the quarterback, you don't stand a chance to win games.
Awesome. How much onus do you put on your guys for the defensive performance this week? I checked out the film a little bit, saw some of the linebackers play, and I noticed that some of the interior guys just couldn't hold those blocks. What's your message to those guys as you go into next week?
We got to get better. I tell my guys like it is. When we do well, I tell them. And when we don't do well, I tell them as well. And I challenge myself as a coach to get them better prepared. And I challenge my guys to look themselves in the mirror and ask themselves, did they do everything that they could to help this team win? And from there, we'll get the X's and O's corrected in the scheme part. But, a lot of that, was just hand placement, missing with our hands, taking bad steps. A lot of it wasn't so much of what they did, but it's what we didn't do.
Awesome.
I always tell our players, it's not who we play, it's how we play. It don't matter who we're playing against. It's always about how we execute and how we played up to a standard. And that standard can never falter. It always has to stay the same, no matter who we're playing.
Coach, thanks for taking time with us. Good luck in Boca Raton this weekend.
Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Daquan Bowers joining us. One of his guys is next. Thad Mangum will join us when we continue on the USF Football Radio Network, presented by Marathon. Bulls in Florida Atlantic this Saturday. Radio coverage begins at 4:30. TV is at 6 o'clock, CBS Sports Network. Bulls are home for homecoming with fans October 10th against East Carolina. 1-800-GO-BULLS or USFBullsTix.com to get in the gates and watch a game at home for the first time this year. Thad Mangum joins us. Thad, thanks a lot for taking time. You spent a lot of time at Wofford, had some injury problems last year, now coming back to play for the Bulls. What's the experience been like at USF?
Well, thank y'all for having me. The experience here, once I got here in the summertime, June, I got in with Coach True and the staff, and I was able to work out with the staff and just try to come in and just give good effort. I just wanted to learn. I knew I was coming in new, and it was going to be a new experience for me. So I just wanted to come in and give my best effort every day.
That once you found out that you were going to miss the remainder of the season in 2019, how did that feel?
That crushed me. I remember when I got hurt. It was August 31st. We was playing South Carolina State in the first game of the season, and it was on the first drive, and I knew my knee. It felt like I took a bad step, and I was trying to redirect, but my knee buckled, and I knew something was wrong, but I was like, I'm going to finish the game. So I played the rest of the game, and I told my coach, my D-line coach, I told him, I was like, my knee is hurt, but I'm going to finish this game because we was already going through injuries prior to the game. So I was like, I'm going to finish.
Wow.
Defensive line here at USF has a lot of new faces this year, you among them. How has this group come together and worked through these unusual circumstances?
We just try to communicate efficiently. We just go in with the mindset of grinding it out every single day. We know that we have to learn and continue to grow each day to get better and better. So we'll be the anchor of the team. And as we go, like Coach Bowers said, as we go, the team will go as well. So we just try to grind it out and give our best effort.
That I want to ask you two questions. This is a two-part question. First of all, why did you choose the USF as your second opportunity to play college ball? And were you familiar with the rich defensive lineman history that we had here at this university? And if you were, I'm sorry, three-part question. Who's your favorite guy that played defensive line here before?
To answer the first question.
Do you remember it?
Yes. Why I chose USF as my second opportunity. Well, Coach Scott, he was in conversation with my D-line coach at Wofford and my high school coach at Christ Church in South Carolina. They had a good relationship, my high school coach did, with Coach Scott from Christ Church, and we practiced at their facilities in Clemson, getting prepared for our state championship game my senior year. So having that relationship, he reached out to him and was able to talk to him, and they liked my film, and I was able to get recruited to come to USF. USF was a great opportunity for me because it was able to go to grad school and have more exposure on the football field as well. So I just wanted to take advantage of that opportunity. The second question, I did not know about the rich history of the D-line. I didn't know about that, but can you enlighten me?
Well, I'll just tell you this, man. This is what we'll do. I'll see you around, and we'll talk about it. That give you time to redeem yourself. I don't blame you. It's okay.
Okay, I appreciate it.
No problem.
Tell us about playing for Daquan Bowers. That's a guy that's been there at the highest level.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I used to watch Coach Bowers on TV growing up. So, like, when he called me on the phone, recruited me, saying I had the opportunity to come play for him, I was real excited. Just being able to learn from a guy who was a top recruit, played at a high level in high school, then was able to transition to Clemson, play at a high level as well. And being from South Carolina, it was just a great opportunity for me to learn, and I just wanted to take advantage of it.
You know, I'm looking and I'm listening and hearing about what you like off the field, and it seems like you're priming yourself to be a businessman, entrepreneurship, and golf. What is it that you'd like to get into after football?
After football, I want to be a athletic director. That was one of my interests. I want to help others who are coming up wanting to pursue being a collegiate athlete and try to be a professional athlete as well. I want to have a system for them to be able to be successful through networking and different things. When I was at Wofford, I had a mentoring program that I started in my senior year, and it was able to help out some of the kids in the Spartanburg community. So just being able to mentor them and give them good guidance, because young black men in our society nowadays, all they need is a mentor to guide them in the right direction. So being able to help others and just give time to others that's what love is, showing time and effort and show that you care to one another. So I just want to do that.
That's beautiful, man. I commend you on that.
Yes, sir.
There's always great things in these bios. Sports that you enjoy. 2 of them listed. Golf, okay. Jet skiing is the other one. Tell us everything about jet skiing.
I've actually never been jet skiing. I just knew I was coming to Tampa, so I wanted to try it. I wanted to get on the water and I've only been fishing one time, so but I see on social media and stuff, I see everybody just posting about going on the water, going to the beach and stuff. So I just want to experience that.
Listen,
You want hard-hitting news, you know where to come from.
get through the season, man. I'm sure we'll find a way to make
Yes,
that
sir.
happen, man.
Yes,
Welcome
sir.
to Tampa.
Yeah, we
Thad.
have a goal now. We need to get you on
Right.
jet skis
Yes,
before
sir.
this is done.
Yes, sir.
Thad, thanks a lot for taking time for us. Have a great game down at Florida Atlantic.
Yes, sir. I appreciate y'all.
Thad
problem.
Mangum will stay with us, come back in just a little bit, back to wrap it up for the Bulls and Florida Atlantic next Saturday on the USF Football Radio Network, presented by Marathon. Welcome back to the USF Football Radio Show. We're looking forward to joining the team on the road this Saturday as we go to Boca Raton for the Bulls and Florida Atlantic. And, Sam, we talked about at the outset of the show, so many crazy storylines in this. We're going to see so many familiar faces and old friends. It really goes beyond Willie Taggart and Jim Levitt. Kevin Patrick is coaching there, a longtime Bulls assistant, and some guys in their organization as well that used to work here. So it's going to be fun, but it's definitely going to be an interesting one and hard to predict just because we haven't seen Florida Atlantic play this year.
Right. I think Jeff Scott and his staff really have a challenge in front of them, because you can best believe Willie Taggart and Jim Levitt are coming into this game with the intent to win, and they're going to do whatever it takes, right, to come out of this game with a W. And it is a true challenge that they have no film on this team. So what they try to do is they try to take a look at existing personnel, and they try to go take a look at some of the, you heard Coach Scott say it earlier, some of the film from Levitt's defensive schemes at Oregon and what Taggart has historically done on offense. But that doesn't mean diddly squat, because they can come in and they can do something totally different. Also, FAU has the opportunity to exploit what USF has shown on film these past 2 days. So USF will have to be at their best. I'm confident that if they come into the game and they just be the best USF team that we've seen all season, they're going to put themselves in a great position to win. It's not necessarily about what FAU does on film. The reality is football is universal. There's only a certain amount of concepts that you'll see. You won't see Taggart go from being a spread coach to being an I formation coach or a wing T coach. It just doesn't happen. So as long as they read their keys on defense, block well on offense, and protect the ball on offense, put it in the air a little bit, give some of the guys on the outside an opportunity to make plays, USF will be in good position this game, Jim.
We're looking forward to it. 6 o'clock kickoff. Join us on the radio side beginning at 4:30 for the Bulls and Florida Atlantic. Thanks a lot for being with us today on the USF Football Radio Network, presented by Marathon.